Hello, and welcome back to the editing stuff. Or maybe you're not back. Maybe you're not returning. Maybe you didn't watch the other episodes. You know, maybe this is your first time. Maybe no one's here and I'm talking to myself. That is not very surprising. Who texted me? Oh, hey. So the last episode, it was meant to be a part one of a part two, but I lost that footage because anyway. Not the movie, just of the recording of it. I'm going to try to get a couple more, at least, episodes done. But this episode, I thought I would do something a little different. I'll do at least one more episode of, like, actual editing stuff for the no person who watches this. But for this episode, I think I'm going to mess around with the grading of a scene versus just the actual editing. So we have this scene here, which stops here, which is like a little robbery scene. And it's still kind of the first cut of it, and audio is not there, so I'm not really worried about the audio or whatever. It's just mainly going over the grading and the coloring and stuff right now. So, this first part of the scene, we have Andre, we have John, and he's got an LED strip up here, so it's constantly changing colors. Now, what I have already done is, in my timeline, I put in my color space for my camera, just so everything is, you know, started where it needs to be. I like to put a little detail in there with an additional sharpening. Not too much, because that looks really weird if you do too much. So, just an initial base, and you can see kind of on the scope how much more we're getting out of it. So, that's our jumping off point. I'm trying to keep it very simple, not do too much, especially for this one right here. Like, this is, because the color, I'm not, you know, it's more important on the grading on this part. Which, it doesn't look terrible, honestly. I've got a lot of blacks, but not Andre, Andre is black, just anyway. Okay, so, again, this is just my sort of rudimentary way of doing it. So I'm going to start, usually what I'll do is 2 nodes of a grading and then a coloring. I might keep this one just in the singular node, since, again, I'm not really worried too much about the coloring because it's constantly changing. White balance, I'm just going to say it's fine, honestly. I'm not going to go through and do all that. First off, let's raise this gain up a little bit. Now, I do want this to be a little darker, but I want the lights to kind of shine up. Let's go like a 0.125. Gain we could put down a little bit, and then the lift is kind of there. Like if we increase the shadows a little bit, and then that's probably too much. Like, honestly, okay. So here's something we need to look for. When it gets to the coloring, is it too dramatic? You know what I mean? Like, let's go a little bit more in the highlights here, just to raise those up. And let's go a little bit more in the shadows. Now, one thing I'm also noticing, don't want to do that. There's quite a bit of noise here. So I think I'm going to do a noise reduction on this one. That's quite a bit cleaner. Is it still sharp enough though? Yeah, I think it is. Usually I'll go with a 25. I don't go past 25 though, but I just don't want to overdo it. Okay, so I'm happy with this as far as like noise reduction. Again, I'm not gonna really worry about the coloring on this one, just the grading, and because again it's changing so much. I think this is the most neutral lighting, and our blacks are pretty there. Some of our highs are up there. Maybe we just go 10. Bring it up a bit. And I just want to see, now the reds seemed really dark. Okay, so the red light here seems to be about the darkest, and that's still fine with me. So I think we're good with this one. Let's move on. All right, so now what I usually do is add a secondary node for the coloring, and then we'll do this as the grade. And we'll use this as the color. Sometimes you can get them 2 in 1. I just try to get it right, and then I'll just post it on the other clips. What I'm actually going to do is do it on this clip, just so I have their skin tones in there. So first thing I'm going to do is get a white balance. This seems pretty, like, contrasty. Like, we got some lows, we got some highs that are pretty solid, actually. So I'm just going to worry about coloring, or some white balancing right now. Okay, so I've just gone through and just kind of, what I'm using right here is, I usually try to find my blacks. I try to keep my blacks black. But with the highlights here, it's a little bit easier to get that exact tone. So if I do it the other way, and I try to get my blacks, so I'd focus on this line down here, you know, usually. So I kind of raise it up a bit so I can see the specific there. Okay, so here's about my white balance, and so all I'm doing is going through, and I have my hotkeys set, and I'm just raising the main offset here, and what I'm trying to do is balance out my blacks. So this line here is my best indicator, and I'm just trying to get my reds and my greens and my blues all on that line to balance it out here. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone through, I added a little bit of warmth just because we didn't white balance correctly for this day. So everything was very blue. And so I'm just using this line down here as the indicator to find my truer blacks. So this is pretty close, and this will be good enough. Now I'm going to raise my gain just a little bit, maybe 0.8. We'll try to get it there. And it's a little darker in the car, so I'm actually going to raise my gamma up a couple of notches. Bring down my lift. 2 is probably too much. Actually, no, it seems fine. I'm going to adjust my highlights a bit, so it's kind of topping off at the green there. There's a lot of green, so I'm actually going to just keep the green down a bit. Not that much. Maybe a little less. Okay, so that's a bit better for me. We could probably use a bit more blue in there. Probably a bit more blue. That's probably too much blue. That's fine. I'm gonna take some of that red off in my gamma there. And then shadows. I'm gonna go. Yeah. I'm actually gonna do is raise my shadows up. Go -3. My shadows back down actually. One little trick is I like to do is just go black and white. If you're finding like contrast or sharpness, it's usually a good way to do it. And I feel like it's not great. So let me reset my gamma real quick. So I'm gonna raise it way up. Okay, maybe if I just go a little lower in my lift there. I'll just go -5. Okay, so I think that's a bit better. So when I go back to the saturation, it's fine. It's a little too much red in the midtone, so I'm gonna bring that down a little bit. Maybe a touch less green. Maybe a bit more red. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So we have our before and then our after. Now it's not as white balance as it probably could be, but it's fine to me. Actually, no. I'm gonna take a little bit of the blues out of there. There's still a lot of green in the highlights there too, huh? Is there too much red up there peaking? There was. Okay, so let's do this. Let's reset our gain here. Okay, so I'm happy with this grading. It's not completely white balanced, but it's close enough for me, and I think that it'll be just dandy. I'm gonna move on to the coloring now. Now we got to figure out exactly what tone we want. You know what I mean? So, it's initially very blue again because of a very poor white balance, but I kind of like the blue. You know what I mean? So, I'm just going to kind of play around and see what we can find now. I don't think I want to do, you know, go a bit more aggressive. You know, that's like sort of sundown, whatever, warm. I don't want to do any of that. I know. So, I think I'm gonna kind of keep it with the blue, honestly. So I'm gonna add some blues in my highlights here to kind of balance that out. And that actually helped with the balance quite a bit there too. I'm actually gonna go back, and because I want a bit more detail in my mid-tones, I think. So I'm actually gonna raise this up a little bit more here. And I want to bring down my gain a little bit here. Just so we're not peaking too drastically. And maybe we can go back up a little bit more on the gain just because of that now. But then I want to make sure our shadows go. So I'm actually going to take the shadows down a little bit more. So I think I'm okay with that. I think that's a little bit better. I think it's a bit more detail, and you can see it's kind of raining here too. That's fun. Okay, so back to the coloring. I reset it just after the grade there, and I think I think it's too much green here. So in the highlights, I'm going to take off some green. And that helped. That helped a bit, especially like on the road there, you know. And I don't love a green skin tone. So that's a bit better. Maybe if we even add a bit more red, or maybe. So it says we're peaking in our reds over here. I don't know about that. I'm gonna take it down a little bit. Just let's go like 2.5 and see where that goes. That's not 2.5, 2.5. So that way we're just kind of under the threshold there. Just, you know, you gotta trust your scopes, right? So, and so we can even add a bit more blue, which I'm not opposed to. And that actually gives us a bit better white balance there. So yeah, I'm okay with that. I like the blue. It's almost this like purple. It's cool. So I'm okay with that. I think for our highlights, our mid-tones, we probably need to add some more red back in there. That's probably too much red. Just for these skin tones, you know what I mean? So like without it, just a 0.15. With it, like how much more it changes. But we're gonna add some green in there too for skin. Do a little bit less. So like you can kind of see the skin tones before. It's really making it pop now. This is probably too much though, to be honest with you. And then we can just kind of take out some blue, and that would probably help warm it up. 0.03, 0.02. Okay. And honestly, for the mids, that might be okay. What do we do this? Let's go. So we're not taking off any more of the mids because I don't want it to be too dark. Let's go boom. Let's go 2, and let's go 0. So then now our highlights, taking out some of the green in there, like in the thing here, and then skin tones, kind of making them pop a little bit, and then shadows. So what I like to do with my shadows, and I'll do a drastic version, but taking off that red really adds that like cinematic blue, which I like, but I don't want to overdo because I like my blacks black. And this scene here being as blue as it is already, which I'm going for, like I can try to balance it by crushing those blues and trying to make it more white balance or whatever, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I like the blue in there, so I'm going to kind of keep that there. We can probably add some green in there too. But let's take off the red. Let's actually add a little green in there. So now our coloring, super simple, but adds a bit of a pop. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab my still. I'm gonna go to my reverse shot here and see how it goes. Okay, so a couple of things. couple of things here. So if we're kind of going back and forth, does it look like it's in the same world? Yeah, pretty much. I feel like this side is a bit darker just because the sun's coming from here and I'm kind of blocking that there. So from this side of the grade, I'm actually going to boost the shadows up a little bit more. Like if we're just going to go the darkest part of his jacket, right? It's close, but it kind of goes out there a little bit. So I'm actually going to raise my lift a bit. And I think that's better. I think that helps. It's still nice contrast, but I feel it helps. So kind of looking at it now this way, I think even though it is blue, it is very blue. Shadows, highlights. Highlights here actually pretty balanced. The red is up here, peaked a little bit, but blue obviously in their main part here. Maybe we can go harder on the blue. I don't know. Let me try this. Let me go a little bit harder in the blues. So let me take off some midtone. So let's go just. Actually, no. I'm gonna keep the midtones where they were, and then I'm gonna take off a bit more red in the shadows. I'll leave the green there. So like, if we just take those off. So I think I'm okay with that. You can see skin tones for sure popping out. Taking some gross green out of the main midtones, even though we've added some. And there's still quite a bit of blue, even though it looks pretty balanced. It still looks pretty blue. Like, let's go to our vector real quick. So yeah, we're pretty blue, but kind of on that line of the skin tone, honestly. So I'll grab a still from this side because the shading is a bit, it's a bit higher in the shade there than here. And I'll grab this still. So this is what I do. I just go through, because I know it's like the lighting maybe changes a little bit, but I'm just going to go through each side there, apply that grade. So now if I go through, it all should look like it's in the same universe, and the lighting should be fine. I feel pretty good about this one as far as like consistency, although the sun is changing a bit. It's like for here example, right? So it's just kind of, and I'm kind of eyeballing this, but I'm just going through and finding like, you know, the main part of his jacket here is kind of going through and see if it's consistently the same shade of black or, you know, dark blue, what the fuck ever. I think that's fine. I could do, and that's that. Like, again, I'm trying to go super simple, super quick. I'm not trying to have, you know, 7 nodes per clip or whatever, and doing, you know, I could go through and add a layer node and like really dial in the skin and do all that stuff, but I don't think that's necessary. I think it looks just fine the way it is. Like comparatively before, maybe a better shot here. So like comparatively before and after, like I think it looks fine. And again, it's just kind of a first pass. I can always go back and change it and dial it in and all that stuff. So, okay, so first things first, let's get our grade. Now, obviously, it's a lot of blue, so I'm going to go through and add that warm tone again. It was at 500. That helps a bit. Now, we need some more gain up in here. 10. I'm going to take off some of this green. What? Oh. Just to really kind of, it's too much. 1.0, I think 1.08 is actually 1.06. Okay, so I think here's about a white balance. I'm kind of basing it off of here because it peaks but it's not too crazy. But I do think I'm gonna take off some of the red here actually. Okay, I actually like this a little bit better. I took off, it's more blue, but I think that is more appropriate to what we had before. So I still want to get a better black here. -15 on the shadows. I think that's closer. I think that's closer for sure. Honestly, I'm going to redo this. Hold on, because my blacks are kind of crushed and not enough. So I'm going to take down my blues by quite a bit. I'm going to take down my greens and my reds, I guess. So I like that better. I think that's a better balance there. And now we can lower lift. Let's make our saturation. Oh, saturation. And we'll go to a -5 on the shadows now. Put this at a -3. I think a -10 may be okay. I don't know if that's too much again. I think that's okay. That's better. That's better to me. Like it's dark, but there's still some detail and you're not losing it. So I'm much happier with that actually. Okay, so now we just got to worry about the color, and it's pretty, you know, close to these, I think, but we get more green. We need less red in the lows. So let's kind of focus on that. Let's put this down. You can see a bit better. That's probably too much. Let's go half of that. I think an 05 is all right. Like especially in his hair, you can see it. I think the skin tones honestly are fine. We need more blue in the highlights. So what I'm noticing in the skin tones here, it's like cool. It could be a bit more maybe, because if you compare it here, there's way more. You know what I mean? There's way more colors, way more detail. Maybe it's too much even, honestly. Like if we just take off a color boost there. So I do like it and the skin pops. I think it's a little too much even with our color boost now. So what I think I'm going to do is take off a bit more of the red in the mid-tones. Let's do this, but then let's add a little bit of blue in there as well. 3 maybe. So just to kind of dampen them down a bit and a little less life, because it needs to be more gritty, right? So look at that eye. What a gorgeous boy. Okay. I think that's close. I think there's still too much red. So what I'm going to do is actually take the red down a couple of notches. Maybe that was too much. I think that's better. It's kind of dulling it down, and I understand that, but that's kind of the point, is it doesn't need to be lively. You know what I mean? So one thing about this scene is you see John here in the door, which is not ideal. So what I had an idea to do was, so this is all one take of Andre comes in, he robs Chiron, and then we cut to John riding, and then he gets out of the car, Andre comes, runs, and then that's our scene. What I had an idea to do is to get out of this, we are going to, first of all, let's get rid of the markers. So Andre comes up and he hangs by the door for a second. I'm also going to, just to save on the lagging, I'm gonna take that off. So Andre comes up the stairs here, waits by the door for a second, cocks the gun, and then goes in, and then we see Johnny Boy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut around this a little bit. So he does this thing. So he cocks the gun, right? And then he kind of looks again. So I'm going to go right to where that gun is off frame. I'm going to cut it. Actually, no. What I'm going to do, undo that. So what we need to figure out is the last frame we can use that we see John, because we need to cut those quick frames out of it, right? Which is not ideal, but I'd rather not see John. So we're going to see how this works. If it doesn't work, we'll change it back. And then what we need to do is cut him before he walks in. So what's the last frame we can do before he walks in? Maybe let's try to see how much momentum he has here. I think we need to do before the head goes down, right? Maybe here. So he's kind of looking in, right? So it would go from him looking in, cutting, and then he's already walking in. So what we're gonna do is the stuff we have with John here in the car and getting out of the car. We're gonna move this over here. So what it was is he gets up the stairs, and in the single take we see a Rob, and then we cut to John in the car riding, and then getting out of the car, and then Andre runs out. So what I would change it to, he gets up there, he stops for a second, and then we cut to John riding, and then getting out of the car, and then we see him come in, and then rob him, and then he leaves. So I think it's actually going to flow better, and we're going to take out that second of blooper, I suppose. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so that audio needs to change dramatically. I don't love how that's kind of dying down. Let me try something real quick. What if we really extend that out and really kind of build that up, and then we're gonna take it down. I kind of like it fading out like that. Is that too weird? No, I actually don't think that works very well. Okay, so I cut it in like a few frames. Just because of the dialogue of the song. They go like this. I think that ends better, so I'm gonna leave it like that. I do a little bit. Okay, I think this works better. I guess that works better than the alternative. Okay, I'm okay with that audio, but the question is this gonna work visually? Maybe let's try this. Let's try cutting it down sooner so it's less of him walking in. Let's see. I don't know if that works at all. And then I'll cut this in a bit. They ain't gonna fight like this. They ain't gonna fight like this. They ain't gonna fight like this. I don't know. I kind of like it leading in. They ain't gonna fight like this. They ain't gonna fight like this. Yeah, that's fine. I want to see him. He moves like a snake. A slippery little snake. Okay, so now it'll end with him running out of the building. Can we have it more? How much? Okay, well, there's a stabilizer on it. But I like... Okay. Okay, so that's as much time as we get as here. I'm gonna take off the stabilization. Actually. Okay. So obviously you can see me there, which is pretty funny. And there's a bit of a camera shake there, but I kind of like the length of us waiting a second, so I'm just gonna leave it. So I just spent quite a few minutes coloring and all that stuff, and I forgot to plug this back in, which drastically changes the image. So I'm gonna go through and we're not gonna worry about that. We're just gonna kind of go from here. So on the scope, yeah, it looks pretty close to the blacks and all that. And I don't know though. It's not. Let me get a more focused shot. Something like this maybe. Okay. So the blacks are pretty close. I feel like I could use more detail in the blacks. I don't really like to push the blacks so much. I like to preserve what I can. So just a little bit more in the shadows, maybe that'll help. We took the highlights down a bit too, so so yeah, that's where we're at right now. I could probably take off some more red here, but I'm gonna leave that in for the skin tones to pop because I know I'm going to take some of the red out in the lows. So let's go back to coloring this one. So I do have the reds already there. So, and again, I can go quite far on this one. I think a 3 is about as far as I want to go though. So just kind of looking at that. And that is maybe too much. Like we can afford to be a little warmer in here, so I think that's fine. Just kind of looking right there and on the shirt. I think that's better. And I did something interesting here where I popped the mids a bit with some red and some blue to kind of make it a little purple. I'm going to take a little bit more blue out. And then in the highlights, I took the red out, so it's not super purple in the highlights there. So it's really just the midtones that are kind of getting that reddish purple tint, and then shadows keeping with that blue-green cinematic. So it's not too crazy. So I think that's what I'm gonna do there, and then I'll put this glow back in. Just kind of making that pop a little bit. Okay, so I think that is fine. Then we have John in the car. This is a simple grade. I kind of like it blue as well. Like, I know it doesn't make sense for the other thing else, but I kind of like it blue. So I kind of like the grading as is. Let's just kind of mess with the color a bit and see. Okay, so I think our grade is good here. We're gonna fix the color in this one over here. So we're going to, and I feel like it's a little too much red now in the highlights. So let's bring that down. Probably bring up our green a little bit too. So something like that, kind of keeping in that skin tone with all the red in the midtones, and it's just naturally, green purple. So we can even add a little less. No, let's keep that red in there, so it's not too much. And I think our highlights actually, I'm gonna take that red back out. So I think that works. Now, if we kind of look at, this scene here and this scene, I think that matches up fairly well. So let's just move on from that. All right, now we are on to our last little bit here. So we just have Andre running out, John standing and then running, and Andre running to him, Kyron coming out shooting, Andre hiding, John running down the alley, Andre shooting. And that is our scene. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly apply this grade, because it's going to resemble, it's not going to completely match, but it's going to resemble this. Maybe this is a better one to look at. So if we can kind of make the colors, I think the colors are pretty close there, honestly. I think it's mainly the grading we need to worry about, because it's way too dark. So let's go in here and let's bring our gamma up. Let's bring our gamma up quite a bit. And it says our highlights are a bit, so let's take our highlights down so we're not kind of, I think 0 is actually fine. And then, so where do we have most black? Probably something like here. And it's gonna be a little darker. Shading's at -10. But let's kind of just take this, grab this still, and apply it to, say, this one. We'll apply that grade. That matches pretty well, honestly. The blacks could probably be blacker. If we're like looking like here, right? So if we go to our grade, it's 0.04. Probably push that a bit more, maybe 15 on the shadow. It's probably a bit better. And his pants and his stuff. There's still some detail. I think that's fine. I think that works. All right, so now we need to make, you know, this here match with here. And it's pretty close. We just brighten it up a little bit that way. This is actually probably a little darker than it. So if we just do like a -10, yeah, it looks like the same world. Now we gotta worry about this. So let's just, for fun, let's just apply this grade here. So our kind of color is a bit closer, but we need to still worry about the grade. Actually, maybe that was kind of fine. As long as we're not, we might be pushing our gamma a bit much. Like, let's try that. So let's lower our gamma a bit. I think it's fine. I think it is fine. So let's grab that still. Apply the grade. So it's like before, after. I think too much red here. Too much red in the midtones. Kind of looking at the white wall now. So let's take down the reds and the highlights quite a bit. And the skin, actually, let's keep the skin tones up there. But now there's too much red there, so let's go -0.1 here. Okay, so yeah, I think that'll about do it for me here. Again, this may not be the exact final version, but it's gonna be pretty close, if not exactly this. Thanks for watching. If you watched, I have a couple other ones. If you want to watch those, as far as more of the actually editing the scene, this is just obviously a grading and coloring pass. All right, peace out.